Hello everybody, Video Game Freak here, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite formats of all time. We're going to be talking about LaserDisc, and talking about the pros and cons of this weird and kind of fascinating format. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you don't know what LaserDisc is at all, I don't blame you. I didn't really know much about it until probably about a year ago. I knew a little bit about it, and I just kind of seen it in movies a little bit, sometimes, and it really was not talked about. Nobody in my family that I know of has ever even really heard of. I mean, my dad's heard about him, but he's never actually had him, if I know correctly. And my mom's never had him. My grandma, my sister's grandma, nobody knows about these really or ever had them. And I think it's a really fascinating format because obviously when you just look at it, it's like, what is this? What is this huge DVD kind of thing? And this came out right when. Here's the year it came out, and it didn't really take off till pretty much, I think it didn't really take off to the 80s. When the 80s, it came out, yeah, it came out in the 70s, and there's different size differentiations. This is the 12-inch, and if you know anything about records or record players or anything, 12-inch is the standard size of a normal LP record. And it is huge, and it is, it's very easy to, okay, so let's go over the pros and cons. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So, we'll go over the cons before we go over the pros, because the cons are kind of important to know. So, one standard LaserDisc, just one standard LaserDisc can hold 2 hours of content on it. And with that, if you think about it, if you think about your favorite movie right now and think about how long it is, let's say it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. Even if it's that, it cannot be held on this LaserDisc. So, you have to think about, oh, how do they do that? Well, there's if you go back to my second pickup video, which I have it linked right there, if my Terminator one has 2 LaserDiscs. So there's side 1, side 2, side 3, and side 4. And each side of a LaserDisc, this can hold an hour, and then the other one can hold an hour and an hour. So if it's an hour, let's say a movie's an hour and 30 minutes. Let's say Terminator 2 is an hour and 30 minutes. I don't know the exact runtime of it. But if it's an hour and 30 minutes, you're using this side, on the second LaserDisc, you're using that side, but the whole other side of that LaserDisc has no data on it at all. And if you look at the label, it says just no data was written on this side. And if you think about that, that's pretty for the cost of make a LaserDisc. If you're just not using the whole other side, just one side of it, you got to think of it that way, as it's just not really efficient in that way. What I mostly thought about these is I have Weird Al Yankovic CD that's double-sided, so one side I think can play music videos on a DVD, and the other side is just a CD. And I think that's kind of crazy how it has a DVD and a CD kind of smacked into one. So that's what I always think of it when I was first kind of thinking about LaserDisc, because I always thought about that Weird Al CD. And that is another format that we might talk about in the future as CD. I forget exactly what they call CDDs or something like that. I don't know. But okay, so LaserDisc, the cons, the bad crap about LaserDisc is, like I said, an hour can be played on this side, hour can be played on this side. And we got to think about that. Oh, one side can play this, one side can play this. Oh, it's just the laser flips or something like that. And some very expensive LaserDisc players you don't have to flip the LaserDisc to actually do it. But for the most part, halfway through the movie, when you're watching halfway through this movie, and it just stops, and you have to get up, eject the LaserDisc, it comes out, take it, pick it up, flip it over, put it back in, go back in, sit back down, get all comfy, and then you watch the second half of your movie. And that's not that bad, but when you're thinking about Terminator 2 or long movies, when you got to think about it, you put in LaserDisc 1, you watch that top part, you flip it over, watch the second hour of it, and then you take it back out, put it back in, get the second LaserDisc, get side 3, put it back in. It's just a hot mess, and you can understand why this format really didn't take off insanely well. It did last for a while, and it was definitely better quality than a VHS, but the thing is, you have a big CD, and if you know anything, if you ever own CDs, DVDs, or anything, you know that this can get scratched up by just about anything. And if you have a scratched up DVD, like if you have a copy of, I got a copy of Over the Hedge, and if this copy of Over the Hedge is scratched to all belief, it is not probably going to play. And if it doesn't play, then you don't have a good movie. But the thing you can do with DVDs and CDs is resurface them. Now, do you think they made a resurfacer that's this big? There might be one out there, but they're either extremely expensive or don't exist anymore. And you got to think about that. If you have a little disc and it can get scratched up and it stops playing, what about this big disc? And if you get that scratched up, it's weird how this thing actually works, the actual technology behind this thing. And I don't know all the specs, and I might say something wrong, and I apologize if I do. But it says it's analog, it's not digital, and excuse me. And it doesn't. It uses like it's really weird the technology that it uses. But if you, let's say I scratch the crap out of this, put it in my LaserDisc player and watch it, it isn't going to necessarily skip. I usually don't see that with LaserDisc. If it can skip, LaserDisc can skip. But what I usually see is it just gets all crackly. If you ever watched a VHS that's been watched 1,000 times over and over again, like that copy of Home Alone you have on VHS that you watched 1,000,000 times and watch it and it's all crackly and staticky and all that, that's what kind of happens when you scratch a LaserDisc and play it, and it really sucks. Because I have this copy, I got a copy of Home Alone, not Home Alone, I keep talking about Home Alone, Dumb and Dumber, and it's fine, and it works good, but once it gets to the end of the first side, it gets really crackly and bad. It's not like so bad that you can't watch the movie or something, but it makes it really displeasing because it's a really funny part, and then you're watching it and it's all crackly, and it's like, that sucks. And LaserDisc play, this is in the sleeve by the way, LaserDisc play like a record does from the outside all the way to the end. So if you have a really big scratch in the right here, it's going to be at the beginning supposedly, and then if it's really a scratch in here, it's going to be at the end. And you can like get some like window cleaner or like some really nice and get some like really soft cloth and clean them, and be very careful because it is easy to just scratch up your LaserDisc, and it is like, and if you accidentally, let's say you sit it down or dust gets on it and then you put pressure on it and move it or something, it can get scratched. It's just kind of a headache to have to worry about this. And also, like, if you look in the side of the sleeve, it has a bunch of like pictures and stuff of it. It can get cracked, it can get warped. It says it can get cracked, it can have defects, it can have warping, it can be splitting. It says don't do that. It says warning, to avoid danger of suffocation, keep the black. Oh, that's a bag freaking warning. Never use damaged disc in the way it shows as follows. Yeah, that's for most sleeves. It says like this big warning crap, and you're like, I just want to watch a movie, and you're like, so yeah, if your LaserDisc has cracks in it, it's not going to work. If it has a big warp in it, it's like, I never had a warped LaserDisc, so I don't know if it still would play. I doubt it would, and if it gets super scratched and splitting and stuff like that, it's not going to work. So it is a lot more to worry about. Same thing with kind of records also, is it can't be in super amount of heat. If you have it in like a shed or something, or if you had it in your attic for 1,000 years and pull out that LaserDisc and see it all warped and all funky, it's because it can't take in the same amount of temperature. Same thing with DVDs. Any format really cannot take an insane amount of temperature or temperature change. That's with any format, even like with video games or anything like that. It can affect it and damage it in some way, which makes sense. But with having the cons of having to flip the movie during the playing and it just stopping and it can be scratched and having it. But if you have a brand new LaserDisc and take all these precautions and make sure you take really good care of it, it looks sometimes in some situations better than a VHS, and sometimes as good or maybe even slightly better than a DVD. And yes, that is a crazy thing to say, but I think sometimes it looks better than a DVD in certain situations and certain lightings and stuff like that. But most cases, you're going to want to just get a DVD. I like the novelty of the LaserDisc, and if I see a really cool movie on LaserDisc for cheap, I'm going to pick it up. I'm not going to go spending like $40, $50 on a LaserDisc or something just to get my favorite movie on LaserDisc. I don't really want to do that, even though it would be cool to have. But I'm just not going to do that because I got to think about all the different kind of things. And most of the movies that I have are pretty much one-sided, but this Last Action Hero copy, which honestly is awesome, and I love this. I just got it for Christmas. And it is a really cool copy, and it does play really good. But I'm just afraid down the road after I watch this and take it out, take it in, and then it's just going to get crappier and crappier, and it's just so stressful. Then just taking a DVD, taking it out of the case, and it's just protected plastic case, putting it in there, and it goes. Instead of having to flip it, touch it, do all that, and it just has more risk of getting damaged. And it's just overall, I like the format. I wouldn't recommend really getting into it unless you really think it's cool. Or if you have some already, it is what it is. The thing is, if you're trying to get into LaserDisc, is getting a player, a LaserDisc player. They're fragile. They're fragile, and if they're hard to find a really nice LaserDisc player or a really nice condition one for cheap. You can get a LaserDisc player that's $500, $600, and it's like amazing. But for the average person, they don't want to spend $500, $600, $400, even $300 on a format that's defunct and you can't watch new movies on, and most people are not going to go spend that kind of money on LaserDisc or a format that is obsolete. And that's like, I would say for the main set of it, like if you want to get collecting into VHS, you can go to your thrift store or something, or your Goodwill, and find a VHS player. You might find, a broken one every now and again, but they're like, you can find them at yard sales and stuff for $5, $10, $20 at most for a VHS player. And VHS players mostly work good. And VHSs, you can find them like crazy. There's VHSs out of the wazoo in thrift stores and stuff. They're usually selling for 25, 50, 75 or a dollar. 75 cents or a dollar, and it's like you can get them nonstop. The thing is with with VHS though, which I'm not gonna go into insane about it, is it's on tape, and if tape gets used a million times, like I have this one copy of Home Alone, like I keep talking about, and I've watched it probably over 75 times or something like that. If you go watch it and just some spots it just gets really, really bad and it just looks horrible. That's why I got rid of my VHS collection, because as a kid that's all I had, and I was just, well, I mean I had TV, but like for movies I just watched VHS over and over again, and I watched my whole collection over and over again, and that tape just got worse and worse, and pretty much all my VHSs looked like crap after watching them over and over again. And there's this store that I talk about it a decent amount. I loved it so much. It was Buybacks, and I used to go to it all the time. And when they got rid of all their VHSs, I got Terminator 2 on VHS, brand new sealed, and I opened it because I didn't have any other way to watch Terminator 2 at the time. I didn't have it on DVD or on LaserDisc. And if you watch it brand new, same thing if you watch it brand new LaserDisc that's never been scratched, touched, or anything, they look really good. Like really, really good. And that's with any format. Like with cassettes, if you listen to a cassette that your uncle Burns or made like 9 years ago that he's listened to 100 times in his '69 Corvette, and it's just played so much, and then it looks like it got kicked in the floor and it's all jacked up, and you listen to it and you say, wow, cassettes sound like crap. No, it's just, you got to take care of them, and it's just so much responsibility to take care of formats. And it's a big turnoff to most. And same thing like if I'm talking about records. If you touch a record and get your oiled into the cracks, it sounds all crackly and poppy. And it's just, it's a lot. And to collect formats, it's kind of a pain. And when you think about just streaming stuff, or just streaming movies, or just listening to stuff on your phone, it is really way more relevant. Am I ever going to stop getting DVDs or Blu-rays, or ever stop collecting physical games instead of getting Game Pass or stuff like that? No. And I might be crazy for saying that, but I just love collecting stuff physical. Don't get me wrong. I love owning these weird LaserDisc and VHS and cassettes and DVDs and Blu-rays and HD DVDs and 8-tracks and reel-to-reels. I don't own any reel-to-reels, but I want to eventually. But yes, I love collecting this stuff in records, and just, it's all just so interesting in what, it's just the past, and it's just experiencing the past, how it was. And that's my little shamil and talk about LaserDisc. If you have any memories about LaserDisc or VHS or cassettes that you just want to complain about or talk about, put them down in the comments below, and I would love to talk to you about them. I've tried to answer every comment I've got, and it's really fun talking to you guys through comments and hearing what you have to say about certain video games or different formats or different people I talk about. It's really fun, and I love talking to you guys about that. And thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the stick in the end of the video. I appreciate it very much. I will see you guys in the next video. If you have any ideas also for videos you want me to do in the future, put it down in the comments below, and I most likely will pretty much do it. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a great day. See you in the next video.